Hello everybody, welcome to this conversation that we're going to have today. We're in the middle of a series called Next of Kin, where we're looking at nurturing our closest relationships. And for those who've been here the last few weeks, you'll have heard talks on things such as marriage, parenting and divorce. And before that, we were looking at things like conflict and communication and how to listen well. And today we're talking about singleness, and we're going to be exploring what does the Bible have to say about us being single. And so I'm joined by a few people here today, which is great. So we've got Sarah Walker with us. Yep. We've got Johnny Moore and Brez Meyer. So it's great to have you guys with us. Thank you so much for coming. Do you want to introduce yourselves a little bit first before we get into stuff? Sarah, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, okay. So I'm Sarah Walker. I'm actually married now. I've been married for 2 years, but I was single for about 12, 13 years previously to that. So, yeah, just really passionate about our church really being represented well, all aspects of relationships, really. It's probably me.
Yeah, great. And so all three of you are part of our Bracknell site, right? And
Yes.
And you're actually preaching this in Bracknell.
Yeah.
And you've been part of the planning of the series as well, with the team who are planning the series. So we're going to hear your thoughts on stuff like that in a minute.
Yeah.
Johnny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm John, or Johnny Moore. I've been at Bracknell for about 4 years now. Single for a few, probably 4 or 5 years. And something that I'm kind of quite an expert on, I would imagine now. But I kind of, I like being part of the Kerith. I love how we kind of deal with the two sides of the kind of the biblical stuff and the reality side of life together. I just think it's brilliant. So it's my first time doing anything like this, but hopefully it'll be okay.
Great. We're glad to have you with us. And good to hear your wisdom start. Brez, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Brez Meyer. I've been married for a good few years, but now I'm divorced. And been single now for the last 7 years or so. Been coming to Kerith for plus minus 4 years, the same as John. And yeah, Kerith made me feel welcome, and I never went back wherever I came from. But glad to be here. Very, very happy.
Cool, great.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, do you want to start us off then? Why should we have this discussion about singleness? Why, when we're talking about relationships, we talk about the other ones, why is singleness important? Why is it important to have this discussion?
So I think all relationships are mega important, aren't they? All relationships are important to God. He creates families, but ultimately our first relationship is our relationship with God before anybody else. We all come into this world single. We will grow up without a partner, and depending on what stage of life, we may find a partner, we may not find a partner. But actually, it's an important aspect of life, as much as marriage, as much as, I know we're talking about divorce as well. And singleness has so many aspects to it. So I think it's easy for us to think of singleness as a single person, maybe not married, maybe living alone, no children. But actually, there's so many different aspects to singleness. You've got single that have maybe been widowed, that have lost their partner, with children, without children. You've got divorced, you've got separated, you've got single parents as well that are raising children alone. And singleness has, certainly from my point of view, as a single parent, bringing my son up on my own for, a lot of his life since he was 3, basically, there was you didn't quite fit into either camp. So although I was single, I had that responsibility of looking after my son. I had that responsibility of making sure that he was fed, he was clothed, he was watered, the financial aspects of it, and you can't just drop everything in the same way as not having responsibility. So I think there's so much more to singleness, and I was just really keen that we just bring out this topic and we talk about it as a church, and all the different aspects of singleness. So Brez, for instance, brings a different aspect to singleness maybe than John, and maybe than I. So it's just great having this conversation, I think, and just stirring some questions amongst ourselves and amongst the community.
It seems this series is raising lots of discussions and questions, and like we were saying before, it's real life, isn't it? These are our real lives that we're living here, whether married or single or whatever situation we're in. I wonder whether with singleness and being single, there is a lot of presumptions that might be made, either of single people themselves or singleness in general.
Definitely.
John and
definitely
Brez,
is, yeah.
what would that look like for you?
I mean, we've talked about this, and I feel that actually, particularly in this community, there isn't a lot of kind of judging or comments said to you, but I always feel generally society looks at you as a single person, maybe that your life's incomplete, you're unhappy, you're lonely, there's a big chunk of your life that's missing, unfulfilled. And I don't think that's the case, but I do feel that's definitely the perception society has. And even if you say, look, actually I'm happy in my life, I'm content, I know who I am, I'm single, but I'm happy. I feel that society maybe looks at you and says things that maybe you're, not that you're lying, but you're maybe deluded slightly, or that you're trying to hide something, you're masking the reality, which isn't the case.
Do you think that it's sort of talk about society, do you think there's any difference between society's presumptions as to what we should be doing and church's presumptions what we should be doing with singleness? What do you reckon?
I think there's I mean, when I'm at work, for example, and if I say to people at work, I'm single, I'm on my own, then you kind of have this, they get this idea of me being all alone in a dark corner and like that. Then I try to explain to them, but that's not me. I attend church, I've got a full life, I do various things after work, and even when I say to someone here at church, for example, then there's more of an understanding, because you are a close-knit group of people here, and people have, it's almost like, and people have got a better idea of, because it's a lot to do with a faith-based type of understanding that they've got here at church, whereas at work, it's a totally different mindset. That's what I found with when I've spoken to people in the past. But I think it varies from person to person when you speak about when a woman is single, for example, raising a child, whereas with a man, he hasn't got the children and he had his children for the weekend. Like in my case, for example, I see my children every second weekend. But when I see my children, then I've got that responsibility of being a dad. And when they are away, my life still goes on. I still got the responsibility towards them. That, yes, I am single, but I've got them in my life.
Yeah. So, Sarah, would you sort of mentioned it, maybe it's different for, sort of a woman. What was your experience, and what are your thoughts around that? As a woman who's raising a child, and what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I totally see. I used to run a single parents group here a few years ago, and we had a few guys that came actually to it, and like you, Brez, they would have seen their kids maybe at weekends, so they still had that responsibility and a financial responsibility and the responsibility of parenting and still being in the children's life, but not the day-to-day sort of routine of maybe that, and some of the dads had more input than other dads, but actually there's still a lot of responsibility being a father, and you're still a single parent even though you haven't got maybe the children all of the time. So that's a whole another aspect of singleness is you've still got the responsibilities of having children. Maybe it's not 24/7, but that's still there. And actually, a lot of singleness, and Simon Benham, our senior pastor, quite often talks about leading out of our singleness, leading out of our relationships.
Yeah. It's about being content with who you are, and I think being single is my first point of call is to be happy with myself. And if I'm happy with myself as a person, as a Christian person, the singleness doesn't really affect me. But yes, there is sometimes I'm not going to shy away from it. There is times when you feel like, yes, I wish I had someone. But at the same point, you must also bear in mind that you are okay. This is what God planned for you. This is how God steered you. And your life was written way before then. And this is the path that you have to walk. And I think
you can quickly flip it into a positive. I think When you're single, you can say yes to more or less anything, and you know, whether it's serving here, helping out, little plug for the church there, but you can do anything. You really can just say yes to more or less any opportunity. Whereas when you have more responsibilities, you know, you can't just do that. And I just, as much as you may look at that as a, you know, sometimes as a single person, you often think, yeah, it would be nice to do these things with someone else. Yeah. I just think there are so many more opportunities you have, so you can quickly turn it into positive, I think.
Yeah. Ben, a Bible verse that comes to mind for me personally is 1 Corinthians 7 verse 8, for example. Now, to the unmarried, it is good for them to stay unmarried as I do. And that is what Paul wrote in the Corinthians. And I'm not saying, the Bible doesn't say it's not good to be married, but the Bible also advises us, being single is okay. Being single is okay. There's nothing wrong with being single.
Life's hard, I think, and relationships are hard. And sometimes if you're on your own, you just have to look after yourself. And, you know, I think that's hard enough at times. So actually, I don't know, I just always try and see the positive side. I just think society looks at being single as a negative, something missing, but actually, yeah, I don't think it is. I think being on your own has many benefits, and actually, you know, financially responsible for yourself, have your own time to do whatever you want, say yes to anything. That's okay. I just think that's okay, and I never really think about it too much. Yeah, sometimes people might kind of feel sorry for you, and I, you know, I don't ever want to be flippant about it, but I never feel. I don't want people to feel
because you
feel
don't
sorry
really,
for me.
You don't really think about being alone or that you are single. Life just goes on, and yeah, everybody's got their ups and downs.
Life's busy, isn't it?
Yeah, life is busy.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so we talked sort of about some of those presumptions that people have had, and then sort of some of the reality of it, and some of the sort of non-reality of it, and the sort of falsity of that. And I want to come back to that passage you just read out, Brett, in a bit as well. I'd love us to just sort of hear a little bit about some of those challenges, because you guys are incredibly positive, you know, about it. But I imagine that's not always the case, right? It can't be the reality that everything's fine, all right, all the time, and everything's okay. In the same way that anybody in any situation, right, is saying. But tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that might be unique to you guys, you know, being single.
I think sometimes, I mean, everyone's life's busy, and it works both ways. But I feel sometimes friends are always busy, yeah, and with life, work is work, family, and we live in such a connected world within, you know, social media and WhatsApp and everything like that, whereas it can be hard just to have those genuine connections with people. So friends that you don't see because they're genuinely busy, you can exchange 10 messages about the football, but you just kind of want to just have that proper, let's meet up and kind of hang out thing. Yeah. Rather than being, I don't want to be spammed with 400 messages about the football. I'd rather spend time with the person and watch it together. I'd say those are the challenges, is maybe people in relationships maybe don't have time to really consider that maybe you might be a little bit bored sometimes and might want to just meet up, especially with the lockdown and things that we've had. But I always flip it and think, well, I can still do, you can make the effort as a single person to arrange something, or just go and find something that you like to do. You know what makes you happy, find it and go and do it. And if someone comes with you, great, but if they don't, you can still do those things.
And that's the benefit, isn't it, of being in a community like this, is that actually you've got people around you that you can meet up with. You know, we're a big community, and there are a lot of single people in our community, and a lot of couples, but actually those friendship groups are there, and that's what it's about, isn't it, as a community, as Christ followers, you know, just walking with each other.
It made me think of that the group that Steve Walker actually started, your husband, and that was a good initiative for us, not just singleness, but for men to connect as well. So there's a time when we would meet up and then just go somewhere, go sit, and then you just hear. It helps a lot for me to sometimes just call John up and just have a quick word with him. Listen, I went through this today. Blah, blah, blah. He might not say a lot or whatever, but I know there's an ear for me, and that helps, and that is based on the community that we have here at church.
Any other challenges that come to your mind?
I think from a practical level, it's harder financially. House prices, rental prices, all of that kind of thing, when you've only got one income coming in, that's an added tension.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
I think. And it does make a difference there being two people contributing to a household rather than just one. So that's on a very practical level.
That's very practical, but actually real and important, isn't it? The reality of that.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up a point about that's kind of on my heart about singleness. And for me, my greatest thing is about singleness is you can live your life the way you live it, but if you look at from a Christian point of view, you've got more time for yourself and you've got more time for God. Your focus is then on God. You've got more time to reflect with God, and you can grow more because you've got ample time on your hands, because you don't have. That's why that verse is so important to me. If I have to refer back to it, 1 Corinthians 7, verse 8. So now that I am single, I engage a lot more with church. For example, Alpha, Peach and Coconut. I try to serve my church, but more importantly, I am serving God. And I want to grow more in my faith. And that is, I personally don't think I would be able to do these things if I was still married, if I'm brutally honest. But now that I'm single, this is where God pushed me into. And that is what my singleness brings me. And that is what brings me happiness.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. That's really good. I'd love to sort of lean into this then a bit more than really for God's heart for us as people, as individuals, as people who are single. Sarah, what have sort of you've been exploring and sort of going to be preaching in Bracknell as well? What are you learning from Scripture about what God's heart for us is when it comes to being single?
So I think, ultimately it's about our relationship with God first and foremost. And you're absolutely right, Brez. When we're on our own, I think that relationship with God, we've got more time. We haven't got other people to consider and everything. And I think what you said, John, it's very, very important actually that we are right with ourselves. That we are secure in who we are. We are secure in who Christ made us. We are secure in being a child of God and knowing that we are a child of God. And ultimately, once we are in that place and we're content with who we are, we're then in a place to actually, be in a relationship almost, if that's what we want. But it's not about looking. I don't think looking under every stone or, sort of hunting it out almost. And I think God brings people together. God is the orchestrator of families and of relationships. And he can do it in a very natural way. I think when we focus on God, when we focus on what he wants us to do, and we focus on, just developing our relationship with him, working on, our stuff really. We all carry baggage, and actually we do have to do a little bit of work on our past experiences, what we've gone through, and actually to make us the best version of us that we can be for a future partner as well.
Before we were filming, we were talking a bit about this actually, and all three of you in your own way basically said, you before you were married, Sarah, you said you sort of came to a point where you were content in yourself, and for the two of you saying, well, in a position of going, I feel like content. Yeah. What does that look like in reality? That sort of, it's talking about the desires of our heart. For somebody who might be watching who's single, but they're saying, I would just love a husband. I would just love a wife. What can we say to the people who might be in that situation of finding the reality of living out this content life in practice?
I think you just have to be content in yourself. Know who you are. Understand what makes you happy. Find that and be content. Just learn to live, kind of love yourself. You are enough as you are. Seek God, but be just be yourself, seek God, be yourself, be content in who you are, and if you find somebody, great, but when it becomes your first priority, I think you just won't find it anyway, but you become distracted by that, and I just don't think that's the right place, because I just think when you're looking for somebody else to make you happy, just don't think that ends well.
I think happiness starts with yourself as a person, first and foremost, and then being single, if it's written for you, if it's written for you that it will happen, it will happen. But if it's not, I don't think you should go and look. Just be happy with yourself. Be content with who you are as a person, first and foremost, like what John said. And then if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But you can be happy and be single. There's no law that says that you have to have a wife, because there's so much. The world has got so much to give, and you just have to find it within yourself and to go seek what you want. But don't go looking for someone just for that is your heart's desire. Sometimes it's not meant to be. You
need to make yourself happy, and I think there's so many things in life that you think, if I have that thing, I'll be happy. Yeah. And a wife or husband or whatever is another thing, but it won't. You need to be secure in yourself first. It is easier said than done, but I think time, you get there.
John, we are living proof.
We are. It does. I think. We are looking for miracles. So.
And you know what they say about miracles? God,
they can happen.
Yeah, God makes miracles. Yeah. So. Yeah, we are.
And you know, we all go through seasons of singleness, don't we? You know, like we were talking a little bit earlier. You know, we're single up until an age, and some of us will be single for longer than others, and may meet somebody, may not. And actually, it might not be our desire to meet somebody. Actually, there's people, you know, that I know that actually are very happy and content being on their own, and actually that's what they believe is their plan for God's plan for their life. Actually, to remain single, and they're very happy and everything. And we were talking earlier, weren't we, a little bit, and saying that actually, you know, if we get to could be married for 20, 30 years and we lose a partner, perhaps a partner dies and a husband or wife passes away and we're single again. And actually the first and foremost relationship that we have to have is with God, to basically be our all, to be our provider, to be our comforter, to be our counsellor, to be our steerer of life, you know.
Really good. So we're sort of short on time now, so I guess I'd love to hear just from you anything particularly that you'd really love to share with people who are watching. There's a mixture of people who are watching. Some are single, some aren't. Some are in different places within their marriage or their singleness. You know, is there any encouragement or anything that you'd want to share off the back of his breath? Do you want to kick stuff?
I would say to someone that is out there that is single, find happiness first, seek God, and the rest will follow, and you will be better off if you've got your foundations of your faith and you move from there. But don't burn off. Don't let your desire become too big. Just stay content with who you are as a person, as a single person, and just live a happy life. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is simple, really. It's just enjoy the opportunities that it brings you being single. Just enjoy it, because you don't know what's going to happen next, and you're single in this season, but it might change. But just embrace it for all it is, and be content with that. And there's nothing wrong with being single. Just enjoy it, basically.
That's great. Yeah, that's really good. And Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just live out of your singleness or your marriage, wherever you're at, just living out the best possible version of you that you can be, So actually you will speak to so many people through how you live your life. Through how, as Christians, we speak volumes to our non-Christian friends, don't we? And actually, through living a godly life in our singleness, living out the best life that God has called us to in our singleness, we'll speak volumes to our non-Christian friends. And actually, who knows, win some of them to God as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you guys so much. I've been really inspired by this conversation. Like, just chatting before the cameras were rolling, as well as tonight. Just you guys are great, so wise, and yeah, I'm sure this is going to be a real blessing for people who are watching, wherever they're watching this, wherever they're at. So thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you.
No
really
problem.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.